can take over. And I think
Great. Will you pull up the slides, Beth?
Yep, I'm going to pull those up now, and we'll have time for questions at the end. So, all right.
Great.
Here we go. Awesome. Take it away.
Okay, I'm so excited. We're here, we're at our little co-teaching workshop here. I spent all weekend prepping and thinking about it. You'll notice on this front slide, this little box down in the corner that says type in the chat. Do you like milk chocolate, dark chocolate, or not a chocolate lover? So when you see things like that, if you guys could actually type in the chat, this is our way of being interactive, and I'll be circling back to why we're doing all that. You can do the numbers, you could say the words, it doesn't really matter, but great. And while we're doing that, Beth, if you'll go to the next slide. Oops. Full screen. And this is just something for you guys to read for a second while you're telling me about your chocolate preferences. And from the gurus in the co-teaching world, I'm not sure if anybody knows of, I don't know if it's Andrea Honigsfeld and Maria Dove. I have a number of their books. I also have had the pleasure of going to workshops that they've presented in New York, because they're out of, I believe it's Malloy College or LIU down in New York City. So if you ever get a chance to do a webinar or anything, even see them, I would highly recommend it. They're really the gurus of co-teaching. And I'm not really going to read everything. So let's go on to the next slide. Okay. So you might be wondering, and again, I'm not going to be pulling up those. I'm not going to tell you what to type in the chat. You're just going to be able to see it on the slide. If you have questions during this, I can't see everybody at the same time because of my little teeny Chromebook, but you can certainly put a chat in and we will have time at the end. You might be wondering why Beth asked me to do this. I did start working as a curriculum writer for Beth this past year. I was an Equipping ELLs member and she really helped me out last year. And I've been using her resources for the last number of years and just been wowed by the thoroughness of everything and loved everything that she was putting out there. And so I am an ENL teacher in New York State. I'm up in Canandaigua. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it. It's a pretty decent sized district. In my school, which is UPK through 5, we have only one school for UPK 5 in our school district, which means that at kindergarten, there are 14 sections. At first grade, there's 12. At second grade, there's 12, and continues on like that. So even though it's not a huge district per se, I guess it's a really big place. And for co-teaching, that has been, I would say, a challenge because we have to try to group the kids. And that's one of the best tips I can say to start off. Get all the kids into one class that you possibly can. That way you can devote more of your time co-teaching there. I have worked K-12. I did that for a number of years, and then I was K-5, and then for the last 6 years, I'm really K-3 but focus on K-2. And I have been co-teaching since 2014, a year before the regulations came out in New York State. So the reason I co-teach is really because New York State made us, and I love it. So I just want to come out and say, I love it, blanket statement. I hope that you guys learn a ton about it tonight. And let's go on to the next slide and get into it. Okay, so I would love to see everybody give me a thumbs up if you are an experienced co-teacher. You've been co-teaching for a couple years or more. Thumbs in the middle if you're familiar, or are you a newbie to co-teaching? I'm going to scroll through. Okay, I've got in the middles. I've got a thumbs up from Jen. Anna, I don't see yours. Heather, I don't see yours. Okay.
I think you can put an emoji too if you want for a thumbs.
Yeah, you can do an emoji. If you're not wanting to be on camera, it is no problem. Okay. So some of you are experienced, some of you are really familiar. I hope that you hear something new if you're really familiar. If you don't, I hope it's a reinforcement of things. And if you need to chime in and have an opinion about something, you can certainly let me know. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, this is what we're talking about. Number one, why and why not co-teach? So why wouldn't we want to? And why would we? What are the pluses and minuses? We'll talk a little bit about the co-teaching models, what it can look like, what I've done personally, what I think works great, some tips, some real basic advice, and then we'll have time for our burning questions. Now, this type in the chat here, how far ahead are you usually planned out? I hope any of you are noticing a theme on some of these questions. These are questions that you'll want to ask your co-teacher. Because if you think that you're going to work successfully with a number 5 on the fly, run away. It's really not okay. Even a number 4, you need a 1, 2, or 3. And I would say a 2, because that's the most realistic. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right. Oh, too far, too far. Okay, so I know these questions are coming at you really fast, but why not? Why co-teach? I might have put it in the wrong order also. Go on to the next slide. It might have popped up a why not. Oh, benefits. All right.
Well,
I'm actually.
I went too far. Hold on a second.
Okay. No, I think you're where we are.
Here we go.
Oh, here we go.
I'm going too far. Hold on. My computer's going crazy.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Actually, that big long slide that has all the text on it is from my co-teacher. Right after why. Oh, you did go too far.
Yeah, I went too far. Here we go. Okay.
Oh.
Here we go.
There we go.
And
another excellent question to be asking your co-teachers. When do you like to come to work? Are you an arrive early, a stay late, or contractual hours?
I love this.
That's super important to know.
Mm-hmm.
When are you going to catch your person who's there? Are they going to be totally ticked off if you stop in at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday? Okay, go to the next slide, please. Okay, this is the why nots. These are the drawbacks. This is from my fellow co-teacher, Stacy Sabin. We've been teaching 2nd grade together on and off for like maybe 6 years. I mean, consistently for 5 years. She's fantastic. She's a super strong personality in the classroom. She's extremely organized. We do not always see eye to eye, but she is fantastic to co-teach with. She's like, just know that it's a commitment. I'm going to let you guys read all this stuff. It takes time and you have to be flexible. Okay, next slide. Here we go. Why not co-teach? Some of the things that can really get in the way. If you're a person who doesn't have the time, like you have so many students and so many different groups, and you are in a ton of different classrooms, co-teaching might not be a great fit. When I've talked to people in the Equipping ELLs group who are like, I have 50 students this year. Girl, unless they're all in 2 classes, or boy, walk away from the co-teaching. It's not going to happen right now. Or just pick 1 class to start it in. Scheduling. Yeah, it can be really difficult to schedule the co-teaching because even in New York State, where I have things backing me up to say, you have to co-teach and this has to happen. I'm going to tell you right now, being in a classroom for 20 minutes is not generally like truly co-teaching with them. That's pushing in and maybe helping. It can be really tough to manage that and figure that place out. Planning, you're like thinking, oh my gosh, I'm already prepping for all this and now I have to co-teach. Is it just going to be too much? And the value, those can be all, is this really going to be the biggest bang for my buck for my students? These are all things that I've encountered, all things I've struggled with at different times. And I am going to tell you, I love to co-teach. It's my favorite part of my day until I get my pullouts, and then that's for the favorite part. Hey, why co-teaching? All right, these kids questions, I tell you, these are just things that you got to know about your co-teacher, because they're going to talk to you about them, and you're going to need to know, like if someone's hitting the skids at home, it's good for you to have that empathy and know about that. Beth, will you go to the next slide?
I just want to say, Leslie, I love these little advice of these questions. Maybe we can come up with, I'll take these questions out at the end and come up with a little one pager that you can kind of have a checklist of, things.
I use one. Yeah. So just so you know, this little checklist didn't come from nowhere. It's something I pulled off of Teachers Pay Teachers years ago. Yeah. And essentially when I get a new co-teacher, yeah, the first thing we do is we sit down and go through a checklist and talk about all of these things. Literally, my first question is milk chocolate, dark chocolate, no chocolate.
I love it.
Because when it's October and you all are hitting the skids, throwing a piece of chocolate their way will just put a smile on anybody's face. And so it's easy. It's an easy win.
So true. Awesome. All right.
Okay, you might notice that the drawbacks that Stacy wrote, much smaller than the benefits. And she talks about mutual, express, and trust a lot. And how amazing the experience can be for both the teachers and the students. You guys can get copies of this, like as a PDF afterwards, that's fine. I don't need to go through all of it. But being on the same page, knowing that it can be super fun. We go in and we're having a dialogue, a conversation. That's in that class. I will tell you about some other scenarios and how I teach, and it's like super regimented, and I'm a little scared of going off book because that teacher is not like that. She's super buttoned up, but it works, and I'm learning from her as well. We can go on to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, so this is all the why co-teach. Your state or school district is requiring it. That is why I got started, because in 2015 in New York, they put out some new regulations that said every single one of your students has to have co-teaching, and it has to be, every like 180 minutes a week. And there's a lot that goes into our regulations, as I'm sure it does with everyone. The second thing, it's awesome. It is awesome for your students, their families, classroom teachers, and for you, the ENL teacher. And I'm going to explain a little bit about that. So we'll spend a minute on this slide. So for your students, just having that experience of having you in the classroom and they are not the other and having to be pulled out all the time, and them knowing that you're going to know exactly what I'm doing in this classroom, and being able to see and compare them against their peers, and bring in their home language a little bit at a time, or bring in a cultural project. Like the year we made parandas for my one student who's from the Philippines and had her mom come in to the gen ed classroom, and she's beaming. I could have done that in my own classroom, my pullout, but the impact it had for her, for the whole class to be excited about the Filipino Christmas traditions, was amazing. For the families, it's great, because I will tell you that the communication that I'm able to give to my families is inclusive of what's happening in their gen ed classroom. And there's we use this Parent Square messaging app, and all the messages that concern my students are between me, the gen ed or special ed teacher, and the parent, all of them. That might seem like a lot for some of you who have these giant caseloads, but it's the easiest way for us all to know what's going on. In my district, I'm very much like part social worker and part ENL teacher. That very much crosses over. So if your teacher or similar in that way, being in the classroom gives you the know of what's exactly going on. I also say to my teacher, Stacy, all the time, like, oh, in the middle of lesson, she'll be like, I don't know, they didn't turn in money for this or that. And I said, oh, don't worry, I've got 5 minutes when I come out. I'll go and message mom. And it just brings everybody closer together. For the classroom teachers, my classroom teachers, I think by and large, really like that I'm in there. It gives them strategies and you're modeling how to teach for the ENL students right in front of them. I know for my own self, it's a masterclass every day. If you're in with a good co-teacher, you are learning from them as well. I mean, my classroom management went from like a 3 to probably an 8. I would never say I'm above an 8 because I struggle just like everyone else, because I've been in other people's classrooms and I get to learn from them. And for me, ultimately being so tied to the curriculum, getting the chance to have, this year I'm in 5 classrooms. I have relationships now with 100 students and I love it. It's fantastic. I am seen as just as much a teacher as anybody else in my school because of the co-teaching. I am completely legit because of that. And they know what I'm doing in my room. Everything's so much more tied together. I know intimately what's going on in their classroom, so I can pull little bits and pieces into mine. And it kind of makes just everything more seamless instead of just pull, pull, pull. Okay, we can go on. All right. Salty versus sweet snacks. This is a really important thing to know. You don't want to be showing up with a bag of Pringles or a little bag of Lay's and they're like, no, I'm sorry. I'm more of like a kettle corn kind of kid. These are things. Let's talk a little bit about co-teaching models and I'll talk a little bit about how I've done what I've done. Okay. This is all from Honigsfeld and Dove. I'm not attributing this to myself. I hope you guys have seen these if you've ever co-taught. The ones in red, that's the way I've done it. Yeah, I've really never done 5 and 6. I'm sure you could, I just haven't. So maybe if somebody who's done 5 and 6 can pipe up in a little bit, that would be great. Okay. In my 2nd grade class, oh, we're going back. I'm sorry.
Hold on.
That's okay. In my 2nd grade class, there's one main teacher and the other teaches on purpose, meaning I am like, it's like we're on a talk show. We co-teach the content of ELA, which is based in social studies and science in our, so mostly Stacy is the presenter. And I like to do it in a way where I'm like, oh, wait a minute, Mrs. Sabin, are you saying that, you know, when I'm in a rural community, it's really tough for me to get my mail because I have to go all the way at the end? I ask purposeful questions to highlight some of it and also give that think time for our students in the processing time. And we pretend like if you're really old, we're on like the Mike Douglas show where you're back and forth a little bit, or if you're, you know, any talk show, we have a great time. And that might be one group to teach the same content. That's kind of what we're doing also. Number 3, one teach, one assess. A lot of times I've got a little clipboard and I'm looking and observing and I'm taking some formative assessments, but I got to tell you, I'm not great at that. And I don't do it as much as I should. Multiple groups to monitor and teach. That's like doing centers. And you're at a center and you're doing what you're doing and they might be doing what they're doing. And I do that in 1st grade right now. In 1st grade, I also do the 2 teach the same content, or 1 leads, 1 teaches on purpose. And I actually lead the morning meeting in kindergarten, and I have it infused into content, and I say, what do we need to cover this week? And she's like, we need to learn to count to 5, and we need to do this, and we need to do this, and we've got to start nursery rhymes, and we've got to cover concepts of crib. So I go and make these little slides, and I present it, but she's there like being the on purpose teacher. So it's not always that the classroom teacher is the one who's the leader. Now I'm going to talk about my other first grade person that I've taught with. She is the most organized, the most fantastic, the most chill, the most in control of her classroom. You walk in, it is just like lovely and quiet, and there's the little music. I don't have a classroom like that in my own life. We're having fun, we're kind of a little louder. It's not that her kids aren't having fun, it's just that it's very calm. So I don't know if you're getting this, but I think I'm funny. You know, I like to put little jokes in, and I had to tone it down a lot to fit into her room. So co-teaching, you have to be a chameleon. I go in and I am in check in her room, and it is okay because I do need to learn how to do that also. You know, and that's the one I always feel like if I really just went and had fun like I would, she would go nuts. If she came into the other classrooms that I'm in and saw the like crazy and us doing the Mike Douglas show back and forth, she'd be like, no, I don't work with that same person. So definitely if you're signing up to co-teach, make sure that you have to have a strong sense of self, but you also have to know when to dial it back and just really read the room. And it takes a long time to get to that comfort level. There were many times in that one first grade class, I teach sight words and phonics in that room. And she was like, now, Mrs. Tomanovich, you know, I would even get that. And I was like, oh, dang, trouble. And she's the only one that I was okay being in trouble with because she's a master of classroom management. And I knew that if I got the kids ramped up, they were going to get ramped up, and it might not come back down. And also I'm leaving in 15 minutes. Peace out. Woo. And they're all still wait. So I can't do that there. You have to like, it took me a while. So this is all, there's 100 ways to Sunday, and it's going to work differently in every classroom. It's okay. And then guess what? None of these options are perfect. Not one of my co-teaching situations is perfect. And I think after the COVID year, I don't really care anymore either. It's all great. It's all good. They're all getting what they need at different times. I don't have to be there for every fantastic, like fun interaction. They're going to get it. And they have a journey, not a sprint. So give yourself a break if you're co-teaching right now and it's not looking so great. Just try maybe a slightly different way. But I'll tell you that one first grade teacher of mine, she's never going to let me teach anything else besides sight words and phonics in her room. And my boss came and observed one time. He was like, you are grossly underutilized in this room. I said, yeah, that's okay. She lets me pull them whenever I want. And we have a great relationship. I trust her implicitly with my students. She trusts me implicitly. And at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about. So it is what it is. We can totally move on. Okay, big one. How do you want to communicate? You might be with somebody who does not want texts from and blowing it up. I used to have somebody who used to only plan on the weekends on Sundays, and then she'd be blowing me up with her texts all week, like weekend, and it drove me crazy. Needless to say, she was also a number 5 of like planning on the day, and we no longer co-teach together. It ended poorly. I'm just going to let you know, sometimes it doesn't go as great as it could. Okay, these are my big tips. Connect, You have to build a relationship with your co-teacher first and foremost. The little survey and find out when their birthday is. Get a little gift. You know, do they celebrate some sort of holiday around the holiday time? Get each other a little gift. Just be a gift in their life. Also, make that connection. Ask about their kids. Those, I will tell you, there's this, okay, my kindergarten co-teacher, love her so much. She's a lot of work. A lot. Like most of our planning session is me sitting there listening to her unburden herself with whatever is happening for the day. And so know that in a co-teaching relationship, setting boundaries better than I do might be a good idea about really structuring that co-planning time, because I have to say that I don't do that great of a job of it. And I don't have a really formal planning document. I've used the like, let's both have a Google document and we're putting things in. And some teachers that works fantastically and we both refer back to it. And I'm like, wow, aren't we really achieving Mecca here for like co-teaching? And then the others, I'm literally like, what are we doing tomorrow? And, oh, okay. And because I've been co-teaching with them for so many years, I actually already have the stuff prepped for those lessons. And so it's okay. But the first year with my kindergarten co-teacher, having that survey filled out, and she filled it out on me as well. Guess what I got? About once a week, a cup of coffee in the morning. I would never thought someone would give me a cup of coffee. And I was like, yes. She also gives me with my milk chocolate regularly. And she gives me little Kinder Buenos. And she's the sweetest. She is a giant pain. I love her. She advocates for the kids. She is a fantastic teacher. She will bend over backwards. But do I hear a lot? I do. And I really have to attend to her. But it's just like a relationship is what I'm really trying to say. The fact that I built a relationship though, and I trust her and she trusts me, we're now at the point where I'm like, look, I know that you're super busy. And it seems like I could step in and just plan the entire morning meeting for the next couple months. How would that be? And she was like, oh, that would be great. And then got back to complaining about whatever she was complaining. However, I solved a need. I'm integrating things. It's all good. I was going to plan anyhow. It's fine. Number 2, be a cheerleader. You have got to be each other's hype squad. When they're doing something awesome in the room, look over and be like, you're awesome. When they communicate with the parent before you do, oh my gosh, you're the best. I hear that from Stacy. She'll go be like, you are the sunshine in my day. Now she is like a really super lovely person like that. But I'll tell you what, I'm like, I've had a bad day and I go in a room. She's like, we've been so excited for you to come. I'm like, and it's great. So she's my hype squad and she knows it, but you really have to pump each other up and have a ton of great positive feedback. And because you're really filling a bank. When it's time for you to really say something that is like, I have a truth that I need to share. There's something that is bugging me. If you don't have the bank filled, it's not going to go over really well. And it just is nice to be nice. My last co-teaching tip here on this page, relax. It is not going to go well the first year you're doing it. And if it does, hallelujah. If you find somebody that you have co-teach with and it is like going well, leech onto them. Like get your suckers out and hang on to them and love them and adore them, because that is basically how I found my good co-teachers. Because I'm in this giant school that has 10 to 15 sections per grade level, I have handpicked people or interviewed people like on the slide, like, hey, so what's feel them out. And definitely, have you ever thought about co-teaching before? It's almost like swipe left on certain people and right on others. But after a year, I have for sure swiped. I don't know which way you're supposed to swipe. I think you're supposed to swipe right if you like them, but I have swiped left on some people and gone to my administrators and been like, and no, we're not doing it again. And they'll say, why? And I'll go, because I have just the basic bare minimums. I need someone to think that I'm a decent human being. I need them to value what I am doing in the classroom. And really, can they just be nice to me? That's at the end of the day, if someone's nice to me, it's like I'm like a dog. I'll follow you anywhere. They're nice to me. And then you might get down to the nitty gritty. Do they communicate? Do they plan a few days in advance? Do they allow me to have a voice in that classroom? These are all important things. And if you can get that far, you're great. But I might at the end of the day just be like, you know what? She never replies to my emails. And that's kind of a basic. I don't have time to wait around for 3 days for her to get back to me on something because I've got 7 other groups I'm working with. So figure out what are your basic, like have to have, and go with that. Beth, we can move on. I've been talking a lot. Okay, so this was I laughed at this. Who are you looking for? And I think we just covered that. Is this person kind? Like, do they actually like English learners? That is, I'm sure you've all been there where you're like, oh, how are we speaking about this student right now? That is not okay. Do they value you and your students? Do they think your students are fantastic and bring something to the classroom? Are they like, they're behind, they can't get anything done. Oh, I have trouble communicating with the parents. Are they saying things like that? That's not great. That's not a great co-teacher. Are they willing to let you in, willing to be a co-teacher? That's a big jump for a lot of people. A lot of people really like to just have their own little classroom and it is their world and they don't want other people in. You don't really want to go in there. And try not to get forced into a situation like that. Again, the flexibility, things are going to come up and the communication is key. And I know Stacy said it as well. Stacy, my co-teacher, but just knowing how to communicate. That one teacher that is so fantastic and has everything on lockdown in first grade and it's just like lovely all the time. You feel like, when you go in. She never emails me back and never has for 8 years. It drives me nuts. But guess what? I can text her and she will text me back. So I also found out after year 3 that even though she doesn't reply to my emails, she has read them all, took the information, absorbed it, and done what was needed to do. But it took me 3 years to figure that out. So you can really just figure that out sooner rather than later. If you do one of those little questionnaires and just say, are you someone that actually email back or do you just take the information, absorb it and move on? Because I am a total email backer. I'm like a give a thumbs up, anything. So if you need that, you might want to let them know or just live with it, which is what I have learned to do. Okay, moving on. This is it. These are the burning questions. Ask away. And all you have to do is type in the chat or raise your hand, or if you have something else to contribute. I know there aren't nothing was a brain surgery worth or like neuroscience worth on the co-teaching, but I know down the road, like I referred to some Honingsfeld and Dove texts. Get those. Go to a webinar on them. They're going to tell you the nitty gritty. Make sure you're planning with your co-teacher. You absolutely have to plan. It just has to happen. Figure it out how you do it. I personally, because I'm in my rooms every single day and they like me there every day, and that has worked for us, even through COVID when we were in 2 and 2 and all my kids were just in this one cohort. My co-teacher, Stacy, she's like, we miss you on the other days. Will you come in and co-teach on those days, even though your students aren't there? You know what? I said, yes. You know why? She's nice to me. And ultimately, it was what was best for all the students. And when we integrated back in, everybody knew each other and everybody knew me. And she's like, it's actually just better when you're here. I was like, oh, really? You know, because you kind of feel like you're a burden sometimes. I do anyhow. So I was really glad to hear she actually preferred it when I was there. So that's great. Let's not share the screen anymore, Beth. And that way we can get everybody on here. And I want to hear your questions. And I don't want to really talk too much.
I first want to just say thank you, Leslie. That was so wonderful. And just your humor, I think we all needed to just be able to laugh about things. And I loved your honesty. So I think we can all appreciate.
Okay, well, yeah, I think with me, I am nothing if not honest, except when it comes to maybe how I feel about something in the actual co-teaching. Sometimes I don't advocate for myself very well. So even though I can talk about it, know that it really takes a lot to co-teach with somebody and then stick up for yourself at the same time, because you're like,
yeah,
it's really tough.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, the 100 kids I get to see every day, and then I walk down the halls of my school, and this is what I hear: Mrs. T, Mrs. T. And you know, these past couple of years have sort of stunk.
Yeah.
And just having like fans is pretty great. And not just 8 fans or 10 fans or 14 fans. It's like they're everywhere. And they're so stinking cute. And they don't know that you're there for the English learners unless you point it out.
Exactly.
They just think you are who you are, and you're one of their teachers, and it's super fun, and I love it. What questions or what advice can I offer?
Yeah, let's open it up. If anybody has questions. Nadia and Jenny seem very encouraged and just inspired by hearing that. So, but feel free to, you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
You can type it in the chat.
Type it, yep, either one. Jen, go for it. Where'd you go?
Hi, I'm right here.
Okay.
So I do have experience with co-teaching, and I know it can be really awesome and really great. But I'm having a positive experience with one teacher because she's willing to like meet with me before school, like even though the school and district hasn't provided us with the time to co-plan and do all the important stuff together, we're just making it work. In my schedule, I'm supposed to do this with another grade, kindergarten, which I love the kids. The kids are like amazing. They're so super cute. They love when I'm in there. But that team, like, I'm supposed to co-teach with them, but nobody can meet with me during before or after school. They don't always respond. Very chilly response. And I had talked like with my admin about, you know, because I knew I was going into a difficult team. And I said, I really want to start the year out and set expectations, like clarifying my role, what's their role, like what's this going to look like? Can we sort of like find some time within the day, even if it meant a little bit less time for others? And so far here we are, like almost the end of October, nothing is going. And I don't know if I should just, is this one of those situations where I just like let it go and I just have to like be super flexible, and because I'm a veteran teacher, just go by the seat of my pants because I don't really feel super prepared. I'll get to see their plans like maybe Sunday. It's for a math workshop, but they're usually not even on schedule either. So like I literally don't know what I'm walking into.
Okay, so I've totally had this happen to me, and there are some teachers that I am going by the seat of my pants and I'm walking in, and it's not a true co-teaching situation. What I like to try to do is see if there's a time wherein I can go in and lead teach. And I will tell you all, I am an expert in teaching high frequency words. I really am. I have got it down. All the classes so guess what? My brand new co-teachers this year, what am I teaching in their rooms? High frequency words. And I'm like, hey, can I take over your high frequency words for you? Or can I do the Haggerty phonemic awareness piece? Or could I come in and just pre-teach this? and see if you can do that. It's something that is already structured through the year of like, we're supposed to be on a schedule of teaching these things, and try to take it off their plate and think, okay, I'm going to do a little routine, and maybe it's only 10 or 15 minutes. I'm in first grade, that fabulous first grade where it's very zen, for 15 minutes a day. It's nothing. Other years for 20 to 30 to 40 minutes in her room. But you know what it is this year. We just didn't have the time to do everything. And she does not want to teach high frequency words. She wants me to do it, even though she has everything and we've been co-teaching it for 6 years. But if you can find one thing that you could go, I can offer this and be in there and do that, then you're taking some of the lead. They also get to see you taking a lead in something and just say, you know, I love coming in and I like to push in, because what you're doing right now is pushing in, not co-teaching.
I know, and I hate it because I know it's not what it's supposed to be, and I know what it can be, but I know this team has not experienced co-teaching, and it's like so frustrating for me because I can't find my in, but I do like this idea of like trying to find something that I can offer to them.
Say, you know what, I'm really great at teaching, blah, blah, blah. And just sell yourself on it and say, this is what I think would be the best use of both of our times. That way also, I'm noticing you guys are really not able to co-plan on a regular basis. And I get that, because adding in a co-plan on top of having someone in your room can seem like a lot. But what if I just took this piece, I'm now planning it, and then I can work on, you know, I can take it. And that way they might then start going, oh, okay, this is kind of great, because she's actually taking something off of our plate. So if I don't know what they use to teach letters and sounds, maybe they use foundations, and you're like, can I do the letter? Yeah. Can I do that? Can I do some phonemic awareness activities around that? Can I do, you know, just something that you could take? That's my best advice.
Okay, thank you so much. That's really helpful.
Love that, Leslie. That's great advice.
Somebody posted in there, you mentioned that you group students so that it's easier to support them. How is the mainstream teacher that will have the L students selected? Literally, it just happened. And it was like I walked around and sold myself. Hey, I love you. You're so great. Wouldn't it be great if we had students together sometime? And it really was by happenstance. But over the years, now that I know, and we have this big plate of teachers to work with, now it's a little more like, I've heard that so-and-so, I kind of know, is super organized and she's super planned out. I know she doesn't love having other people in all day, but maybe she's a younger teacher, and nothing against veteran teachers at all. But I will tell you that sometimes my veteran teacher, I had one year, I had to co-teach math with her. And I said, is it okay if I just pipe in occasionally? And she was like, no. I had to wait, or I rose my hand to get a word in. And I was like, oh, this ain't gonna work for me. And yeah, so that was interesting. Like you kind of, yeah. I think Nadia, you also said something like pushing in during centers. That is a great way to get around the co-plan. I push in during centers in this one first grade class this year, but I plan the center. So it's like they're coming to me, but it's over at the table over here, but it's within their room, and it is a heterogeneous group. So I do have non-English learners in that group, and that is fantastic because they just get to be part of their peers.
Can I ask a clarifying question about the centers? Because that's what I'm walking into. I'm walking into either, sometimes they're still in their literacy or their math. So I have a scope and sequence with benchmarks. So when you're planning the center, are you planning it based on mainly what you need to do? Or are you trying to look at whatever content they're doing and melding it together? Like how are you making sure you're getting what you need covered for the kids, if that makes sense?
So if I'm hearing this correctly, you have a curriculum?
Kind of. So I benchmarks, I know, crazy, right? I benchmarks that I'm supposed to be assessing my students on, and I can take any content area, right? I can do reading, I can do math, and right now it's supposed to be math during this time. And, but I haven't taken on planning a center because I'm just trying to figure out this team. But I was just curious what other people do, because I saw like Nadia had said something about centers, what you or her do.
So I kind of, here's what I do. I sort of, the beginning of the year, I just push in for a little bit and I get the lay of the land. And then I'm like, I think on Monday, I've noticed, I will actually send an email saying I'm noticing some areas that my students are going to need to work on. So during Monday's center, could you just, don't worry about planning that. I would like to work on the vocabulary of math, or I'm noticing they need more of this or that. So you kind of slowly get in there. And I start all my years off with just co-teaching, but pushing in like for a little bit until I go, okay, get the lay of the land. And then I start planning, and it's like you're eventually taking over the world. You're just laying the groundwork. However, there will become a point in time where they think you are just a push-in person and you don't want it to go too far, because I've also had that where then I'm stuck as a push-in because they think that's all we can do. And I'm like, I've gone too far in this one direction. So definitely kind of make it a balance, and you can start saying, I'm noticing this is what the students need. So I have a couple days worth of center prepared for them. Does that help a little?
Wonderful.
Does my admin support my suggestions? Yeah, you know why? Because they don't know. I'm just going to be blunt. My admin doesn't know much about EL. And so they're like, I don't know what kind of voodoo you're doing in there that somehow you're getting these kids without speaking their language to speak English. And they call me the language expert in the building. They have done that since day one when I was fresh out of college. And I was like, that's a big title, expert. But the thing is now, like, I just faked it till I made it. And now I know. And I find that I complain very little, or I bring things up very little, and I save it for when I need it. And then, bam, I can get what I want. And I just try not to be too much trouble. And that way they'll give me what I want when I want it.
This is filled with gold nuggets.
You've had them assume you speak all the languages. Absolutely. So many years I had people walking into my room going, I just wanted to meet you. I heard you're the person that speaks all the languages. Sometimes you can just mess with them and say yes. I'm like, actually, it's English immersion with Google Translate or the Say Hi app on my phone for my newcomers. But usually they know, they're like stymied. No one has any idea.
Bonita asked, how are you supposed to teach a whole class as an ENL?
Like as the teacher?
I think so.
I teach the whole class because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And so I teach everybody the same thing. And guess what? Kindergartners, they need help with pronouns, whether you're, a gen ed student who speaks English natively, their pronouns are all over the place anyhow. So they don't know, and it's great. Everybody needs it. And that is what I have found over time, where initially I was concerned about me pushing my ENL agenda, if you will, like, ooh, vocabulary, that's going to be really crazy in the first grade classroom. Like, they don't need vocabulary. It's been a little much in my school. But I tell you, then they were like, a word wall. this is fantastic. And then somebody else would see it. And then next thing you know, I'm putting on a workshop for the whole grade level on how to teach vocabulary. And it was like, it had not occurred to them that everybody needed to learn all those words. And I'm like, oh dear. But my schools really struggled for a number of years with their curriculum. So when we went through changing over to Common Core, things kind of hit the skids. And then it seemed like, we had to rebuild how to teach.
Mm.
And so my people just know, like, it's whatever I'm teaching is going to end up being good for the whole class.
Yeah. That's good.
It's all good.
ELLs is good for
Oh, do I do a combination of teaching, co-teaching in small groups? Yes, I do, Phyllis. I co-teach in 4 sections a day. One of them for a half hour, one for 15 minutes, one for 45 minutes, and the other one for a half hour. And then I have 6 to 7 pull-out groups a day. And that's how it's going. It's busy, but I want to make sure that I'm in the classroom enough that it makes it like for real experience of co-teaching.
So how do you keep the balance of planning for both? Phyllis asked. It's a good question.
Okay, so I like to batch plan for my pullouts. And I typically in my pullouts, I use a combination of Beth O'Shea and Equipping ELLs and ERLA. I use the American Reading Company. Those are the reading resources I use because I'm in foundational grades and they're getting content all day in their classrooms. I don't do a ton of true ENL content in my pullouts, aside from what I'm using with the American Reading Company. I cannot say this, the ERLA program. And I'm sorry, Beth, I know this is not your thing, but for teaching, specifically reading, it has been a game changer for me. And so I always am doing that plus some content push. Maybe it's like a couple days a week, we're going to do picture word induction model, and we're going to use some of Beth's things that I've used. It's like a combo. Although I'm excited, I'm starting my kindergarten unit that I actually wrote on Thursday with my kindergartners who are not safe and not responsible and not really learning in their ENL classroom. And I made a unit about it and I told my co-teacher and she was like, yes, thank you, because
yay, take pictures. I want to see how it goes.
I will. I'm just really excited to
the creator of the Staying Safe at School, the kindergarten unit, and then the community workers. So she's an incredible graphic designer as well as incredible speaker and teacher.
Well, I don't know about that.
Let's go with one more
definitely
question.
have fun putting together resources.
The hour. Sorry, go ahead.
Co-teaching a 15-minute session is just I co-teach the sight words. That's the one where I go in and I have it on a Google slide. I have a 5-day routine of what I do each single day with the students. It's interactive. It has videos, it has songs, it has motions. We practice using snapboards. It's like a whole shebang, and I can get in and out in 15 minutes. And there you go. Is it the best use of my time and everybody's? Is it like the mecca of co-teaching? Not whatsoever. But this year, that's how it looks. And so I'm going to deal with it.
Hey, Leslie, maybe you can come back and do a training on how you do your high frequency words as well.
I could.
Tricky one for our ELLs. All right, let's end with this question. I work in a building where the ENL teachers do primarily pushing and pull out services. I love the idea of co-teaching in all the ways it can look. What do you suggest is the best way to get admin on board, classroom teachers and other ENL teachers?
So
you're kind of mandated to do it.
You could definitely steal my presentation and talk to them about people in the field, and you can look up Honingsville and Dove and look up data and research that says that co-teaching is phenomenal for your ELLs students, and then it provides a more immersive and within their classroom experience, and that what you would be bringing to the classroom is of value. I think it's just a conversation. I will also very quickly mention my very first year, I co-taught in one classroom. I tried it out. And I was like, let's see how it goes. And I found somebody who was willing to do it with me and said, would you try this with me? And I basically piloted it and learned a lot. I actually learned a lot from the science units I was teaching in 3rd grade that I didn't already know. So that was cool too. But those are things that you can do. Just try one classroom, find somebody who is willing and kind, and go for it.
Yeah. Yes, great advice. I would say the same thing. Instead of going right to admin and trying to convince them, you know, find that other homeroom teacher that they're advocates for the ELLs. They want to learn how to support their ELLs. They're passionate about them, and see if you can connect if you have students in their class, and just start small. You know, and maybe do a book study together of some of those books. We can send out an email to or follow up with this presentation of just some of the suggestions of books that are really good, and webinars that would be helpful if you want to go deeper on this topic. But this was so filled with amazing knowledge and tips and tricks. And yeah, this is awesome, Leslie. Thank you so much for your time, for putting that together. We will put this up on the platform. I'll send out the replay as well, but I think that's a great suggestion. If you are really wanting to get this started in your school, you know, share the replay with a homeroom teacher or maybe your other E&L teachers, and just have those discussions and see if this is something that could work in your school with your students. You know, go back to the beginning and look at those things. If it's really not something great, even though we know it's what's best for students, you know, it is a crazy year still. So don't try to kill yourself trying to get this set up. But if you're
No,
really passionate about it,
literally
just start
one step at a time. You just
Yeah.
need one who's like, that would be kind of fun. When could
Yeah.
you come in? And what could we plan? And just keep it simple.
Yep. Keep it simple, the motto of the year.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Leslie. This was wonderful.
Thanks, everybody,
Thank you
for
everybody for joining. We're going to have Leslie back, hopefully, to present on other topics, because she is a wealth of information. So, all right, everybody, have a great night. This Sunday, we're meeting for the resources for November, and that will be at 8 p.m. Eastern. So I'll send an email about that as well. So thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks so much,
for coming.
Leslie.